heart of the city, San Diego, and the Gloria Medrano podcast. And I am live right now. I need to, my finger was all in the way, but I'm just going to check. Okay. My connection. I had a little static last week that I was really disappointed about. That makes for a terrible podcast sound. But I do all lives on my teaching. And hey, that's what comes along with live. So it's like if you're here with me in real time, right? So I want you to feel like you can ask questions, that you can, share input, share things that you have been through, concerns, and in real time, I'm here. And I read them, and I can hear your heart out there. So I care, and I'm always here every week, every Sunday at 8 p.m. Okay, unless I otherwise have to make some changes. In the future, there might be big changes coming when I retire from my other job. Then I will. But for now, I might make changes. But for now, it's all at 8 p.m. It used to be 6:30, so no longer 6:30. We're at 8 p.m. 6:30 wasn't giving me enough time. So we last week talked about the subject called control. And on the subject of control, we talked about what that means. What are some of the symptoms? Why do we try to have control? And how do we grow out of that? So there's positive control and then there's negative control. So positive control has to do with self-control. Discipline, like reading the Bible, disciplinary things that you do, like clean, take showers. Those are all, positive senses of control. There are things that, that you have control over, anger, right? We should practice control over our feelings or sexuality and things like that, right? There are things like, setting boundaries that are not good, right? We don't want to drink in excess. I was just listening to one of the, I love to listen to, if you don't know something about me, is I am obsessed with the podcasts that have to do with Navy SEALs, right? Or any kind of high-level military operation type thing. And so I was listening to some of the traumatic symptoms of somebody who has been in some type of high-level military, where they've had to go on missions that were dangerous, that were like, where they had to kill people, basically. I'm hoping I don't get blocked for that, saying that. But, and then they come home and they have to live with all of that. They know that their mission is, for a reason, but they have to come home and live a civilian life after they come out of the military. And how do you do that, right? How do you sit around with regular people, at a dinner table, and they ask you, so what do you do for a living? And what are you going to say? How do you respond to that? When they already know who you are and what you do, what you've done, right? How do you have a conversation about the things, the evil and the cruelty and the things that you've seen other people do, right? And how your response is to all of that in that mission, right? So being careful with my words here. But I am obsessed with that type of thing. So I listen to those things and I gain a lot of insight and things from the words that people like that do not like to hear, right? They hate to go to sweating. So they hate to go to these these uh, these dinners where people are asking them, what do they do? It's fearful. It's a fearful thing, and and here they are. They're now having a panic attack because of the how do they what were they going to say, and now they want to leave because they don't know what to talk about, right? So it's a very uncomfortable situation. I have learned from listening to these podcasts. I've also learned, it's also given me some insight about not just that type of person and their anxieties and post-trauma and things, but other people, such as like my own father, some of the post-trauma that he has had from his lifestyle and the way that he's lived. He's never been in the military or anything like that, but from some of the things that he has been involved in, which he's no longer alive, but some of the things that he has been involved in were very dangerous and caused a lot of post-trauma. Some things from his childhood to the things that he did in his adulthood, that were just got him into some big time trouble and dangerous stuff. And how do you live like that? So I remember him being at a dinner, a really fine dinner that his sister, my aunt, used to have these really, upscale dinners. And, she would invite people. She used to work in the arena with, stars, high level athletes. And so sometimes at these dinners, we would have somebody would come who was a movie star, or there definitely have been like some couple of NFL players and things, at the dinner. And well, one of the occasions was after the death of his brother, and we were all sitting around. It was a very fine dinner, occasion, and we're all, the celebration of life type of thing going on, and they're all talking about, the role they played in his brother's life, and my dad is the oldest of the whole bunch and has lived through a lot of trauma with these people, right? Protecting his younger siblings without getting any kind of thank you for protecting them from a lot of stuff, big stuff. And sometimes he felt a little like not thanked, or, he never felt, he always was okay. He always was okay with protecting them. There was never a, why did I do what I do? He was always down for protecting them no matter what they said about him. But in this one particular situation, it was an in-law who was now in this whole thing. It was okay that the siblings would say something, but then the in-law would set, step down. I don't know how you call it. I don't want to say who it is, but it was an in-law who was saying some things and, just talking really negatively. And my dad, he started to tremble and he didn't know how to excuse himself. And, this is a man who has, been to prison and he's been, done some things in his life, which I can't really name here, but you could just only imagine this guy. He's sitting here with post-trauma and he doesn't know how to control his anger at this point. And so he's trembling. He's like, now he's standing up and I'm like, oh no, it's all going to go down right now. And I'm only like 7. So I already know the whole drill. Oh no, it's all going to go down. He's going to tell my mom, grab the kids, get out of here because it's going to go down right now. And sure enough, He stood up, and when he stands up, that's it. It's all gone. And he stood up and he just tore into someone. He just tore into them. And, you know, he asked them to stop, but they wouldn't stop. And then he just tore into them. He said, "Get the kids out of here." And then my mom just took us, and next thing you know, we're picking them up, from the jail, because they weren't, because of the situation and all the stuff, if it was a family thing, and who was going to press charges or what, and usually it all gets dropped. But so yeah, I understand about big time post trauma like that, and some of the symptoms that start to come up in people who have been through some real severe stuff. So today, and why did I go on to that story? Because we last week talked about control, and some of the positive things of control are self-control. Okay, I'm not talking about, some of my Christian friends would be like, oh, when people talk about stuff like that, they're like, what the Bible says this and the Bible says that. Well, it's also good to know what a therapist would say. Okay, I'm not a licensed therapist, so just so we get that out there, I am not a licensed therapist. I am a certified pastoral care and counselor for over 40 years and a chaplain for over 40 years. Okay, so I have started a church, raised a church, left the church, and left the transitioned from being a senior pastor to moving to another country, back to my home country, and transitioning a new pastor in position. I have done all those things. So, I'm talking about self-control. I have had to practice self-control in all these situations. Okay. And I also understand, have been in a place where I have my own post-trauma and have symptoms that arise, and how do I deal with those symptoms when they arise? What do I do? How do I excuse myself politely out of these things that may occur, right? And so, some of the things that have to do with negative control are, these types of attitudes and behaviors that, keep people in these places or positions that, hi, I see you there, that make it comfortable for you. Okay. And that's not your job. Okay. There are people out there that like to, organize things, and it has to be a certain way and a certain thing and this and that. For instance, my dad, anywhere, any place, anywhere we went, if he had to go into a social setting that was a lot of people moving around and stuff, he had to know where the exit was, and he was obsessed with him sitting with his back to a wall. So he was obsessed with it. Like, he had to sit up against the wall, and he had to be near the door. Like, he had to know, he had to have a good escape route. Like, because he knew himself, he knew if it was going to go down, it was going to go down. And it just, and so he kept this kind of weird sequence of control that he would do. Right. So, but I'm here to, and that's, some of that is okay, but I'm here to teach you that we have to turn this into a positive control, and we are trying to turn this into a sequence of a sequence of behaviors that you do, so that when you're faced with your post trauma, that you can have a sequence of things that will help you to either calm down or to get out of the situation, because you can't handle that emotionally, with ignorant people that don't get you, because like some of these Navy SEALs, people in these high operation things, that we civilians, we can't understand, we can't possibly understand what they've been through. There's just no way. Only another other, you know, person who's done what they've done can understand that. And so sometimes we ignorantly, are pressing buttons by asking, dumb questions and getting too personal. Like, oh, what did it feel like when you did this or that? You know what I mean? Like, how are they going to answer that? How are you going to answer that at a dinner table, right? So that's kind of an ignorant question. So that was last week. We talked a lot about, some control. How do we deal with control? But today's topic is over responsibility and irresponsibility. That's today's topic. So, hi T Rex, I see you there. I missed you too. I'm Pixel Fusion. Hello, Pixel Fusion. I see you. Hi, Scott Matthews. And Malkil Rivera. I think, did I say that right? All right. Thanks for being here. So yeah, I'm here every week on Sundays at 8 p.m. And I live in the part of San Diego where it gets crazy hot. And even though I had my air conditioner off, I have to turn it off during the podcast. And then, it gets humid and stuff in my podcasting areas. And it's like, oh my goodness, right? So it's torture when it's the hot season. But I'm still here for you, okay? We're still here. So what is the character of over responsibility and irresponsibility, right? So over responsibility is something that people don't really think about. Okay, this is like a workaholic type of person, right? And we say things like, "Oh, that's just in their makeup. That's how they are. That's it. They work all the time." But there's underlying reasons why people are the way that they are, because that could be to the whole other extreme, which is irresponsibility, right? And so we want to be in the healthy area of it. And, it's human nature that sometimes we're really, I'm kind of a workaholic. I'm kind of a, over responsibility kind of a person. That would be me. Irresponsibility is not my thing. I'm not over in that area. Although I've had done some things that were irresponsible and things, but I like to work, and it feels good for me to work because I am compensating, right? So there's a compensation that goes on with that. So when I'm engaging in work, I feel confident. I feel, I'm doing something productive, and, it makes me feel like I'm helping someone, and that kind of thing. And I want to be helpful to the world, right? I want to be helpful here on YouTube. And so sometimes, though, that can be over responsibility, because I do everything that I do helps people, okay? My daytime job, my regular 9 to 5 is helping people, right? It is helping. And I listen to people's, gripes, but I also listen to their concerns. I also sit with people that are in hospice who are dying, and I sit with them till the end of their breath sometimes. And so that's a lot. That is a lot. So, they're telling me, or sometimes they're not talking. They're just looking at me and we're just giving eye to eye contact. And they're just giving me a smile, like a thank you. Because there's no words. What words can you say? And they know that they're at their end. They know that. So, what can you say? And so, but you can sit there and be there and sometimes people want prayer, and I have prayed with many people, um, you know, but then my other job is a workplace chaplain. And, in that situation that's more building relationships. That's more going in, and it's more like a follow up. It's more like, hey, we're available if you need us. Hey, um, you know, being creative with how you are there and how your presence, what is your presence like as you go into their workplace and say hello, you know? Sometimes people do want your attention. Sometimes they do want to make an appointment with you, outside of work to have a conversation, to talk or to pray. Most of it is you're doing a lot of relational things. You're building kind of contact. You're just making the initial contact, and that's just, very much a hi, I'm here for you, or hey, how's your day, or a tap on the shoulder. I don't know how many times like people have, just noticed maybe that my face looks a little sad today, and they've come next to me and just give me the side hug. You ever had that side hug? I love side hugs. Okay, I just love side hugs from anyone, a stranger, anyone. I had this stranger. He was the butcher at Sprouts, and he saw that I was having a hard time because I wasn't thinking right. And because sometimes I do these overnight shifts and my brain is gone. And so like he came around the corner and he just like side hugged me. And then like, it's like a there, it's okay. It'll be okay. And I wanted to cry, and then, then other people are just like, they don't have the sensory to see that you're having a hard day, right? And so they take it personal. They think that your hard day is about them. and it's an insecurity thing, but we can, those are things that you can get past just by, educating yourself a little bit. And so, don't make somebody else's, bad day. Maybe they're having just a sad day. Don't think that it's about you. Don't think that, that you can't say or do anything to change it, to make it better, or to just say, just to look. Sometimes people just look at me and they just give me a wink. Like, you all right? You know what I mean? Are you okay, kiddo? Knock 'em out, kiddo is another one that I really liked all the time. Knock 'em out, kiddo. Right? Because when I was basically back when I was a young adult, had this teacher, and he used to give me the side hug, and then he would say, knock 'em out, kiddo. And I would leave like feeling like somebody seen me. I was seen, because in my world, in my home, I was not seen unless I was performing to like high levels, which that's why I was like, a motocross athlete. That's why did some of the things at high levels that I did, swimming at the high level that I was in. And, going back to school and achieving a high school diploma, which is regular for a lot of people, but that wasn't regular in my family. And then going back into finishing college and, going to take some university courses in England. And so, like, that all has to do with, overachieving, over responsibility and stuff, and that performance thing. You're looking for that, that hit of attention. And so you perform at these high levels, and then there are other people that they don't want to be seen. They just stay, they want to be quiet. They want to, they just want to sneak past you. They want to not be noticed, and, is that healthy as well? Because you're needed in this world. So sometimes we don't know the value that we bring to others, right? Uh, Sometimes in our irresponsibility, we put things off, we should have done the dishes, or we should have, put oil in the car, like me the other day. We should have, you know, um, we keep up with keep up with your day to day chores and things like that, right? And sometimes when we get a little depressed, then we don't want to do any of those things. We put them off, and we procrastinate on those things. And I remember first learning about that word procrastination. I was 16 years old, I think. And it was in my boxing class. I was in a boxing class, and it was my coach, and we would do these drills, as we were training in boxing, but we'd also learn vocabularies, do this vocabulary training. And one of the ones was procrastination. And so he said, what is the word procrastination, and then what does it mean? And so we would say it back, what it meant. And that's where I learned that meant putting things off. And I was like, oh, there's a word for that. So here's the cause of over responsibility. So sometimes we think, but we learned from our childhood that, um, those who were responsible over us, like our parents and things, there were people who were responsible over us that were not practicing any responsibility. So we had to do it in order for anything to function or to get done or anything. We had to do it. And so we became kind of obsessed with making sure that something got done, right? So that was me, because I was the oldest in the family. And so I became kind of an over functioning person, where, um, I knew that, like, my parents were going to pass out drunk or whatever. And, they were going to leave the stove on, or there's something, could start a fire, or, like it, and so I would be running around making sure that things were turned off, and, all that, stuff. So, making sure, that my younger siblings had eaten, that they get in bed, that they get ready for school the next day. And those were all my responsibilities that I did. And so, I'm just remembering that. I didn't realize that. So sometimes when I'm teaching these classes, there are things that I forgot the magnitude of the things that I've been through in my life. And then when I'm talking about it, I'm like, whoa, that is too much for a little kid to handle. Like, you know? And so, like, a lot of times I felt pressure to succeed. And you might be feeling that same thing. Irresponsibility is, your parents probably did everything for you. And so you didn't have to do anything. And so you didn't feel the need to have any ambition or anything like that. And so that was a lesson that I learned when I was raising my first child, my son, and my father was with me. And my father, he was, he had his issues, big ones, massive ones. But there were some things that he said to me, which I keep, near and dear to my heart, which are good. um, he knew some things. He had some wisdom there, you know. Um, and so he would say to me, like I had my son, and I was I was the new mom, and I was like, oh my God, I want to do everything right, and again, I'm the over responsibility person, right? So he was climbing this tree at this particular day. He was climbing this tree, and I knew how he was. I knew that he would go, like, he would push the boundaries to like the highest level. Like, he would not stop. He would keep climbing and would not stop. And it would be so high. I always wondered, is he going to be able to come back down? And so, my dad said, I was going, no, come back, come down. Don't go up that high. And my dad stopped me. Like he like pushed my shoulder, and he goes, stop doing that to him. He's a boy. And he said, if you keep doing that to him, he is never going to know his boundaries. He's not going to know how far he can go or what his limit is. And so I said, I was shaking, and I was thinking, oh my God, does my dad even know what he's talking about? Because I grew up with this man. And it didn't make sense to me at that time because I was just such a protective mom, but I understand now what he's talking about. And the funny thing is, my son, that's what he does for a living. He is a professional climber. And so that's his job for a living. Isn't that funny? He wants to climb the highest he can climb. And I was trying to stop it. I was trying to limit it. But my son finds that to be like his calling in life. He really loves it. He thinks it's like his calling. Like, he loves to train people. He works with all the professional ropes and everything. And so, like, I think back to some of those situations, and I'm like, wow, I'm glad that I was told those things, to be aware of those things. So I hope that helps you a little bit. Some of you might have struggled with irresponsibility. If you think back, was that you? Have you struggled like that? Others of you might get, because sometimes, we get false benefits. We talked about that, the false benefits, right? Sometimes we lie to ourselves about, doing something or not doing something. And, we start to say, if I do this, I'm going to get this out of it, right? It's going to be a good feeling, but then that good feeling we didn't think it through. That good feeling might get you pregnant too soon. Just things like that, right? I'm kind of being silly a little bit, but here's some examples. I should or could have assumed adult responsibilities as a child. I should be responsible for other people. I will never meet others' expectations, therefore I won't bother to work hard and be responsible, right? What for? I climbed a mountain with my boxing group, and we all went all the way to the top, it was kind of like a challenge. It was kind of like to see what character would come out of people when we struggled. So we got all the way to the top, and I was with this. I remember this one young man, and he makes me cry to this day. Still to this day, every time I talk about this story, we got all the way to the top, and we were going to get a prize. At the end of it, there was a prize over on some rocks that our teacher put up there, and he said that the one kid that was with us, he sat down. And he put his head in between his, hands, and he said he was mad and angry, and he's like hitting his head, and he's like, hitting himself, and he's like, why am I going to go over there and do that? What for? Why? My parents aren't going to care what I do. They don't care that I climb this hill. They don't care if I go get, a prize. Where am I going to put it on some shelf? Where? What shelf? My parents aren't going to put it on a shelf and go, look at my son, I'm proud of him. There's not going to be that. And so I was feeling the same way. I'm thinking, and I was quiet and shy in those days, and I just stayed quiet. But, in certain situations, I would speak up. And in this situation, I had to say something. I said, I go through the same thing. No one's going to say, oh, well done. I don't have a shelf at home where there's, nice things on there. My dad does like to brag about me, but it's hit and miss. It's not going to be like, a well done kind of thing. I have to do it for me. There's something in the future, some reasoning in the future why I have to do what I do. There's a story that's going to be told to my kids that I did it and I got the trophy. And I don't know what was coming, where that came from, but I'm sharing this with this young man, and he refused, and he came all the way up the hill and left all the way down by himself, alone, hiked back down alone, mad, angry. No one knows where he's at today. But I'll tell you this, those of us who hiked up that hill, who went all the way to go and get whatever that prize was, just a little prize it was, it did something to our psyche. It did something to our future. It did something to our heart. It did something to our mind. It gave us vision for what could be accomplished and the stories that would be told. Some of those people were a sergeant major. He became sergeant major. I don't want to say the names, but you know who you are. Another one is nurse. Another one is vocal coach to the stars. Another one is, I think she's a realtor. So yeah, it's just so many, very few of us, a few of us, and others went on to different things, but some of those people that could not break that limitation, that barrier that was set in their mind, they didn't understand what the future would hold. They couldn't see past that. They couldn't have faith. It was the unknown that what we're talking about, the unknown future, right? And that's how it is when we serve God. That's how it is when we serve God. There's an unknown future. It's by faith. We don't know. We are only going by what the Bible says. And some supernatural things that have happened in our lives that you can't ignore the fact that there is a God out there. It does something to our heart, to our mind, to our future, and to the future of people that we would be talking to our kids, grandkids. Now, today, I have grandkids that I pray with, that I talk to about the future. I mean, those that are in my life that are around me a lot gain a lot from me. There's a lot to be had from Gloria, a lot. And so those that have had that access to me, superstars in athletics, my grandson who like is like this like kid that believes in God to like the highest level. He's only 8, and he has this like this and he has some kind of a crazy calling on his life already. I can already see it. It's insane. He's unusually, like, it's unusual the way he is. And it chokes me up. I'm like, man, what's with this kid? And he has a wonderful mom, well, all of them have wonderful moms, that are just incredible and pouring and doing the best that they can for their future of their kids, because maybe they didn't have it. They want to give it to them. Is it frustrating sometimes when we have to look at our own mistakes and the things that we've done? Yeah, for me too. Don't look at this innocent lady up here on YouTube, and you think she can't possibly understand what I'm going through. Let me tell you, there are things in my life that I have done and seen and been through that will blow your mind. Things that a little girl should not have seen in those early days. Life and death and drugs and danger, lots and lots of danger. And learning how to map out, navigate, watch character, look at behaviors. Talk about, you got these people up here on YouTube Shorts that are experts at this and that. Okay, I had to live that out, watching what people were doing and, what their behavior was going to be like. Mapping it out, navigating it, what to do, what would I do this, and what would I do that, where's my escape route, learning that. That's the stuff I just automatically picked up from watching my dad. Where's the escape route? Where do I sit? Where do I do? How do I conversate? What's going to happen? What do I see flaring up? And then hiding my hard-working money from my mom because she would steal it. My innocent little old granny mommy, who, by the way, has changed incredibly and has turned her life around for, over, I think I forget how many years now, like 40, I think she said 46 years of sobriety and things for her. I should remember that. I need to make a note of that. But, we've had a crazy life, and sometimes you just have to, there's forgiveness, and then there's like, you just have to just let it go. Like no one's going to say sorry. Like, you just have to just let things go. And find your best way of moving forward, and enjoying the moment. Just enjoy the moment with people, and don't try to gain what you need from people that probably will never be able to give it to you. But you should enjoy the moment with people who, are like your parents, who have failed miserably, I don't know. I have never talked to not one parent who has been perfect. You know, um, we we don't come with there's no, like, how to raise kids manual. Most of our parents didn't know how to raise us either, so they're not very good help from that. But for that, but we do have a Bible. It does teach us some things, but we're going to make a lot of mistakes along the way. There's a lot of emotions and a lot of deep, meaningful conversations, and a lot of closeness to be had, and that is the reason why Jesus came, why God gave his only begotten Son to come to this earth for us, because we had issues. There are people in the Bible who, one brother was trying to kill another brother to gain, favor or wealth or inheritance, and then another, person trying to, who can't doesn't have any self-control, and so he's getting some girl pregnant, and it's just so many things that the Bible has in it that you think the Bible can't relate to me. It doesn't know anything about my life, but I could tell you for sure there is somebody in that Bible that you can relate to for sure. And so, hey, I see you there, Ani. Because there was no one in there that was perfect. There was only one person in the Bible that was perfect, and that was Jesus Christ. And so, read the Bible. Just read it from front to back. And don't really sit and try to, I've had, oh my gosh, the beginning of my salvation, I've had so many people attempt to tell me how to read the Bible or how to be saved. Is there a way of how to be saved? Because I got saved in my room alone. There wasn't like a formula, say this, say that, and, and then you'll be saved. No, I had an encounter with God, and it changed my life. It changed my life. And I had two different guys who were Christian trying to date me, and I had never dated anyone at church. And so I had, I don't share this part of my life, but there was a time in my life where it was dark and it was wild. Okay. I was a wild child. And there was this one kid, this Korean guy who was, high level martial arts guy. And he was such a beautiful personality, such a beautiful character. And he carried my books to class all the time. And this was in school, and so he would carry my books to class, and then he would say, he wanted to marry me, and I was like, hold up, boy, I don't know you. and and that was scaring me. I was like, will you go with me to church? He would say, go with me to church. And I was like, go with you to church? What's wrong with you? And I was like, I liked him and everything, but I was like, go with you to church? What? And so yeah, you might have had that situation in your life while you were a wild child. That was just God, trying to, get my attention. There were some things that he was wanting to do in my life. I ended up marrying the other Christian guy, and we are no longer married. So that tells you a lot about my ability to choose. But it was a wonderful marriage. But there were things that could not be continued, and we went our separate ways, and there was no ability to come back together in a reunion or anything because there was already another marriage in the making. So without sharing the whole thing, but he is now remarried and everything. Um, so I basically have had some wild, times in my life, which I could say I regret. I don't really regret. I don't regret those things. I had a great time, but I chose when I had an encounter with God. Just was not in church or anything like that. I just had an encounter with God, um, you know, and I chose a different path. I chose a different path, and the echoes of the young man who was a good man, wanting to marry me and things like that, and he even found me at my job. I wasn't married yet, but I was getting engaged. And he found me at my job, and he goes, "No, no, no, don't marry that guy. Marry me." I'm like, what is happening to me right now? Why doesn't that happen now? And so I said, no, like he was scaring me. So, you know, I, I changed my life. I chose God, and I wanted God, and I have served him for 40 years ever since all those encounters with God, through hard times, through rough times, through really, really, really depressing, sad times. I have served God, and I have stayed the course, and have stayed on track. Not perfect, because I'm not perfect. When I say not perfect, I don't mean that I was never out partying or anything like that. That was not me. I didn't do any of those things. There are people that have done and do that. When they're in their depression times of life, but that was never me. And so, I was never really a drinker, so I didn't go back. There was no going back to drinking. I didn't do any of that. I basically just went back to the gym, started working out again, and that's the jump roping things that you see here, the videos that I share of me jump roping and stuff. And then just playing around in the gym, training a little bit here and there. And going back to school. I went back to school and trained as a chaplain. I went back to school for life coaching, got qualifications for that. I went back to school for so many things. Crisis intervention, I went back to school for during all those times I was sad during all these times. I was depressed. I was going through some things that were, breaking my heart. My heart was broken. And so these are the conversations that you guys don't always hear. This is my testimony. It's called my testimony, my before and my after. So before I was just a kid that was in a wild biker family filled with violence and drugs and danger and, which I don't like to talk about because there are dangerous people out there, and, I was lived in it, but I was not of it. I didn't become it, a member or a gang member or any of those things. And that was because my dad made sure that I didn't do any of those things. And that's, thank God. I was really just a good kid, an innocent kid, kind of. And then I had, some young adult years where I went way off the rails. And that lasted for maybe a good 2 years. And And then I had this wonderful encounter with Jesus. But I always loved God, even from being a little girl. I had my grandma who prayed for me, and I always respected her prayers, and I remember sitting with her, and she would, grab my hand and she would pray with me. And, you know, my mom, even though she was going through the things that she was going through, her, addictions and things, and, she would still pray. We would still sit, and she would go to the kitchen, and I remember sitting on her lap and drinking her really sweet, full of sugar coffee, and it was really milky, and so it was so good. And I would just drink that down. Keep praying, Mama. I'm gonna drink all your coffee because it is so good. Um, and so then she would close her eyes, and I'd be drinking the coffee. uh, and what did those prayers do for us? Those prayers changed our lives. Those prayers changed our lives. And now my mom has changed her life around. My aunt has changed her life, my mom's sister. And now they're like the two closest ones. They have, a long history of sobriety, and salvation now. And it's just been, they're just incredible people, and how can you stay angry or demand, an apology when you see someone? That is my apology. Do you know what I mean? That change of life is my apology. There was never I'm so sorry for the things that I did, but that life, that change is the apology. So if you ever want to apologize to someone, and you want forgiveness, change your life like that. Live it changed. Live your life changed. That in itself is the apology. You will know how people feel about you the way that they act with you. So what are they doing? How are they talking to you? Are they even talking to you? You will know how people are. I watch people, how do they, coworkers and things, people that are in my life, family members or whatever, how do they treat you? How are they acting it out with you? So, do these people at work, do they say hi to you? Do they look you in the eye? Do they stop to actually say, how are you? I watch the demeanor of people. And there are some people who are very genuine at what they do. Okay, they're very genuine, and they will stick. They have the ability, to stop and look at you and say, "How are you?" And that kind of thing, and give you a little compliment. I always give people compliments, and stuff. It's kind of shallow at work, but it's work. But and then sometimes I have deep, meaningful conversations with people that, are going through something, But then there are other people that don't give you any eye contact. They don't look at you. They don't give you any eye contact, and you're wondering, why are they not giving you eye contact? What's going on with them that they are not wanting to give you eye contact or see you or say hi to you, and that's a strange thing, that there's a suspicion with that, and then there are people that, and then sometimes people they're just busy, but these behaviors, you will know which one is that they're really busy or they're really avoidant. There's an avoidance there. What is something that they're guilty of or hiding? What is it? I can see it. If you don't know, I can see it. For those of you who are watching me, and I like people who are pure at heart. I like everyone, but I like people who, are pure in heart, that they have the confidence to say hi to you, you know, that they will stop you and they will say, are you okay? Are you all right? And then I always wonder, why they ask me if I'm okay? Like, do I, am I looking like, do I have a booger in my nose or what? I'm like checking. You ever felt that? Somebody is like giving you too much attention. Like they're like, "Are you okay? How are you?" And you're just like, I'm okay. Why?" And so, hi, Lou Hammer. I see you there. Let's see. What else could I share with you? So, over responsibility and irresponsibility are what we talked about today. And then I started flipping the pages. Where am I at? So let that sink in a little bit. Like, check on how you are forgiving. So, all of these whole subjects, like control and over responsibility or irresponsibility, come under the main topic of forgiveness, right? So that's why I talked about, some people are not going to say, "Oh, I'm so sorry for what I did to you when you were 3 years old." And they're not going to say that, but maybe their lives, maybe they show it by their life change. Maybe they've showed it by how they now have sobriety and have had sobriety for over 40 something years. Maybe they show it like that. Maybe they show it by the way that they have changed, by the way that they now care about you, by the way that they, see if you're okay. Maybe that's their apology. Okay. And I would say I would rather have that than to have someone say, "I'm sorry," and then there's no change. "I'm sorry," and then they're lying again. "I'm sorry," and then they're cheating on you again. "I'm sorry," and then, I would rather not have the apology and to see the results of the change, the behavioral changes in someone's life. We're not talking about perfection, because no one is perfect, but we're saying this all falls under the area of forgiveness. And if you want to be forgiven, then you need to change. And if you need to forgive, you need to just forgive. You need to just let it go and forgive. But, in reconciliation and forgiveness are two different things. So if you want reconciliation, then are they changing? Are they acting it out? Are they living out the apology that they give to you? Are they living out the apology that they've given to you? If not, there's no reconciliation. I'm sorry, but there's no reconciliation. You might be kind and, you might be at the same dinner table with them. And you might, just be nice, but have a deep, meaningful conversation with them or let them come fully back into your life? No, because they don't love you. And they probably don't love themselves either, because they keep living the same torture over and over and over again. Okay? That all falls under forgiveness. Why do people overwork or overdo the things? Because there's someone that has fueled their anger, their inability to forgive, someone who has hurt them, this kind of need for a certain something in their life that they never got when they were a kid, so they fulfill it with overworking or irresponsibility over to the other end. So We want to be in balance, okay? Well, we just want to have some self-awareness. Just, no one's going to be perfect, but at least if you have some self-awareness, you can go, wow, am I overworking, too much today or this week? Do I need to like set some time aside for my loved ones? Do I need to like calm down a bit? Like, am I overdoing it? Like sometimes I like, well, a couple of weeks ago, for the whole month, I deactivated my Facebook and Instagram. And oh my gosh, it felt so good. I didn't want to come back. YouTube is much different, but, Facebook, there's like so much going on. It's like a lot of, horrible ads coming at you and, news that you didn't ask for. And it's just awful. It's just too much. So, anyway, so next week, we're going to be on the subject of approval seeking. So, a lot of ladies go through this approval seeking thing. Well, we're going to talk about that. Somebody asked me, why do you think you could do what you're doing? And I said, because I don't need permission to do what I'm doing. I don't need approval. I don't need approval and I don't need permission. I'm a grown person. I'm blessed and thankful and honored that there are organizations that, endorse what I do because I have behaved okay, enough for them to endorse it. I have a history of, maybe how do I put this? Because there wasn't always really good behavior, but I have a history of, of respectful behavior. So, I've lived out my Christian life. Okay. There's nothing that you can trace back to say, where I did something really, really horrible that could take me out of, any kind of leadership or whatever. But even with that, you still can minister the gospel. No one is exempt from being able to minister the gospel and share the love of Christ, share your testimony, what God has done in your life. And God has taken someone like me, who was a young girl on a path to nowhere, living a wild style and just this biker lifestyle that was, dangerous and, violent, very violent, like horrifically violent, and things that I will never be able to share, horrifically violent. And it comes with post-trauma. But I've also been in the church world where, I have had post-trauma. I don't know which one is worse. And have had a failed marriage and have come out of the marriage broken, sad, I never came to a place where, how could God use me or anything like that. I knew that God was not done with me yet. I had so many people tell me, people that didn't know me, and just these supernatural encounters that I would have with people, and they would just stop me. God's not done with you yet. God's not done with you yet, and just weird situations. And I always knew that what God was going to do in me. I just needed to, so I had to live out the faith of what that would look like in the future, what that is looking like. And so this might be you. This might be you, you know? You may have had a failed marriage. You may have had, some brokenness in your life in your walk with God. But some people have turned away from God in shame, in, thinking that they can't be used again, that, the failure was too big. And, those are all lies from the enemy, that he likes to kick you when you're down. And other people like to kick you when they're down. They feel good. It makes them feel good when they kick you when you're down. But they want to come visit you when you're in England at your house when you're all up. But when you're down, they're nowhere to be found. Nowhere to be found. And that hurts worse than coming out of the abuse and danger and violence from a broken home. I don't know, I think that hurts worse. I think there's a big expectation, though, that we put on other Christians, which I want to talk about in the next chapter, approval seeking. Some of the expectations we put on others, and they're just people like you and me. They see your failure and they don't know what to do with you. They don't know how to treat you. They never learned how to deal with people. They just learned how to preach the gospel and go build a church. But they don't know what to do when you're going through something. They don't know how to help you to get restored. They don't have any restorative measures. They haven't learned, trauma and crisis and what happens to a person. What are they going through mentally? And so you're kind of just left. They think that you're just done, because that's what people taught us. Well, they're done now. They're on the wayside. They're has-beens. Has-beens. I told someone once, "Oh, what are you gonna do with me now? Just throw me away like I'm a piece of trash?" I was sassy. Like, you don't know. I'm from a former biker family. I could share some things that I have done and been through. I've been in a lot of fist fights, a lot of them. Like, this nice lady that you're looking at, I've been in a lot of fist fights, and I just, I get sassy. So I got sassy. I was like, "What are you going to do with me now?" To some leaders. And, I apologize for all of that. And I have done so. But, and my life has shown, the proof of change and, all that. I've lived it out. I've lived out the change and things, and so, like, but don't, like, never, one of the biggest tactics that I have always used is to let people underestimate me. Okay? Everywhere I go, anything I do, I'm around people that are wealthy, they have everything, they do this, they do that, they want to give me advice, they want to do this, they want to do that. I let people underestimate me. And sometimes people that are, sometimes people that they think that I've never done anything bad ever in my whole life, or that I won't get it. I don't know, I'm not in that lifestyle anymore, so I don't know, but and I don't want to know, but that doesn't mean that I can't empathize. Okay. So I do care, and I do get it when it comes to post-trauma. I do get it. I get it, okay? Because I have it too. Okay, you're not alone. You're not alone. And sometimes I feel very alone. Sometimes I am alone. Sometimes I feel so alone. And I'm reminded that, and it's not so alone where like, oh my God, I'm so alone. But, I'm always reminded with a still small voice that God is here and near to me. Okay. And if he's here and near to me, what I'm saying is that he's here and near to you too. Okay. It's not just for me, and it's not just for us good people, but it's that he will give you the love and being a member of his family into the family of Christ Jesus, and show you that love so that you will want that love, so that you will trust that love, and you will make the changes because you want to. Okay? I don't have to manipulate that. I don't have to tell you anything about any of that. All I have to do is say, it's there. And if you want that, all you have to do is say, Jesus, forgive me of my sins. Come into my heart and change my life. Give me the strength to change my life. And the Holy Spirit will give that to you. He will empower you with the ability to do all of that. Okay? In Jesus' name. So I got to run. I got to get to work because I work a regular job. Remember, I am a working girl. Not that kind of working girl. But I work a regular job. So I got to go. Bye. I love you. And I'll see you next week. And we're going to be talking about, what did I say it was? Approval seeking. Approval seeking is what it is. Okay. Bye. Love you. Peace out.